Hey guys, what's up? It's your boy Ruben here, and today I'm going to make a video about one of my memories as a kid when I was younger. So I'm going to talk about my first time experiencing this VHS player, which is called Video Home System. That was created before DVD. So that was used for like tapes or videotapes, and they would put the tapes in, so we would watch the movie as it goes on. And so I remember we only had a VHS player, and I had a DVD player, and those were the only two players I had in my house in New Jersey at the time. So, and then like the one of the things I remember experiencing these VHS players, or what I remember watching from them at the time, was when I was very little. Maybe that was between maybe 2005 or six. I remember watching Thomas the Train, which was basically a show. No, they had that on VHS. So my mom or my one of my other relatives or family members would put on Thomas the Train, and they would put it and we would watch it on the TV. And I think my father was recording me when I was little. I remember I was around 3 or 4 at the time. And so I was watching Thomas the Train. I was watching a bunch of other shows at the time. And so those were one of the baby shows I remember watching when I was little, what I experiencing watching on VHS at the time. And so the TV we had was not like a TV that we have now, like a big flat screen TV. It was like a small TV. It was very small. It was kind of like a size of a computer or something like that. So like we watched TV there. And so I remember I remember I had a bunch of other tapes when I was living in Jersey, because I remember we had a bunch of other VHS tapes there. And so it was kind of interesting because we had a bunch of other movies to watch besides Thomas the Train. We had one of the movies I remember watching was Finding Nemo, Toy Story, Bugs Life, Toy Story 1 and 2, and Bugs Life. I remember I had those on VHS. I remember, and I had a Toy Story 1 and 2 on VHS as well, and I had Bugs Life and Finding Nemo at the time on VHS. And those were the only VHS tapes for Pixar I had at the time. And so for other movies besides Pixar movies, I had DreamWorks and Disney and a bunch of others. I think it was like live action ones. I think it was Toy Story. No, not Toy Story. Sorry, I had The Grinch Who Stole Christmas. I had that one on VHS, the one that was made in 2000. I watched that every Christmas and of every year, so that was kind of very fun to do every year for Christmas, because I remember every time we were decorating the house or putting the Christmas tree on, putting the decorations or the lights on the Christmas tree. I remember I used to watch that movie all the time with my relatives, with my mom, grandma, father, and aunt. I remember watching at the time, so that was kind of a good time. I was watching with them at the time. And so mostly I remember watching Pixar, DreamWorks, and Disney movies. Oh, I only remember watching those when I was younger. For DreamWorks movies, I remember having I had Prince of Egypt, which I had on VHS. I had Prince of Egypt, The Road to El Dorado, which is one of my favorite movies to this day. Still, I love The Road to El Dorado. And so I had Shrek. I remember having the first Shrek movie that was made in 2001. I had Joseph King of Dreams, which is the story about Joseph and his brothers. His brothers were jealous of him because he was his father's favorite son, and so they tore his coat, and so he was sold into slavery to Egypt, and from there he became the Pharaoh's second in command, and so he takes charge of the grain so he could feed the people. So that's from what I remember till now about Joseph King of Dreams, the story of the story of Joseph, King of Dreams, which is also, they also have a book of that movie. It's called the Book of Genesis. That's like the Bible of the, that's one of the stories in the Bible of Joseph and his 12 brothers. And so that's what Joseph, King of Dreams is about. And so Prince of Egypt was about Moses trying to free, letting his people out of Egypt from slavery under the Pharaoh Ramses, who was one of the pharaohs of ancient Egypt. And so they escaped Egypt, and they went to across the Red Sea, the parting of the Red Sea, and went into Israel, and that's where all the Hebrews were freed from slavery. And then the Road to El Dorado was basically about these two con artists named Miguel and Tulio, and they got their hands on a map so they could go into so they could find the city of El Dorado and get all the gold and obtain it for themselves, and so they could have all the gold. But from there, they meet a girl who was named Shell. This is one of the natives of El Dorado who were living in that town, in that city. And so, like, basically Miguel and Tulio pretended to be gods. They sang the song "It's Tough to Be a God," which I still remember to this day. Still, I even remember watching the Road to El Dorado. I think it was between maybe 2006 or 8, or when I was still living in Jersey at the time. So I remember watching those. And then I also had Shrek. Those were some of the DreamWorks movies I had watching when I was living in my house in New Jersey. And I also had the Ants movie, which was made in 1998. And I didn't watch that movie that much, so I don't remember what that one was about. I remember watching mostly Bugs Life. I remember watching, and I watched Ants sometimes, but I really didn't follow the storyline. I didn't like that movie a lot. So I mean, I remember maybe watching it a couple or 4 times or more, but I don't remember the story about what it was about, so I didn't really follow that story that much. And so for Disney movies, I had the Hunchback of Notre Dame, which is basically the story about like the bell ringer Quasimodo, because he's isolated from going outside of the church of Notre Dame because his master Frollo told him to stay in there multiple times because he was ugly and he's deformed, and people will hate him for that. But in the reality, Quasimodo's a kind person. But that's what this whole movie. That's what Quasimodo is in that story of the Hunchback of Notre Dame, which is a Disney movie, and I still remember watching it during that time until this day. Still, I had that movie on VHS as well, and then also for Disney movies, I had Aladdin. I had um, I had Aladdin. uh, Snow White. I had Aladdin, Snow White, Lion King, Aristocats. I had what else did I have? I'm trying to remember to this day because it's been a long period. It's been a long time since I remember watching those. I just remember watching all the Disney, DreamWorks, and Pixar movies. I remember because I can't even remember most of the Disney movies I had because it's been a long, long, long period of time. So, anyways, I just remember watching those movies on VHS. Those I had a bunch of I had a bunch of videotapes of those movies, and I was watching them on the TV repeatedly because I was a young kid at the time, and I liked watching those movies at the time. And for DVD, I didn't watch. I watched most of the movies I watched were on VHS tape, and sometimes I remember watching um, some movies on VHS on DVD too. But I mostly watched it on VHS, and that was before I had a Xbox, PlayStation 4, and Wii. Wii I got maybe was around Christmas of 2011 or 10, or 10. Between those 2 years, I got a Wii for Christmas of 2000, between 2010 or 2011. I can't remember which year it was. I just remember getting a Wii for my Christmas, as a Christmas gift. And so And so I don't remember watching any other movies that were non-Disney, non-DreamWorks, or non-Pixar. I mostly remember watching cartoon movies when I was a kid, when I was younger, when I was a little kid at the time. And so that was kind of like a very fun time for me because I remember watching those movies. But my most favorite movie from my childhood would probably be maybe Lion King was my childhood because I remember watching Lion King when I was young too as well. I remember watching that most of the time. And I remember watching Toy Story 2 and 1. Those were my childhood as well. But like for the DreamWorks movies, I didn't watch Prince of Egypt that often. I just remember watching it sometimes. And then I remember watching the Road to Dorado. I watched that most of the time, but I didn't watch it all the time. And same thing with Joseph King of Dreams. I didn't watch that movie for a long period of time as well. Or Bugs Life either. I didn't watch Bugs Life that often either. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. So please drop a like and subscribe. And I'll see you guys in my next childhood memory video. So thank you very much for watching. And I'll see you guys in the next video.